Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video I'm going to do something that I don't think I've done in any other videos. I'm going to create an isometric drawing and put the dimensions on it using the 3D. So if you ever had a need to dimension a three-dimensional object, well, this is going to be the video for you. Now just keep in mind, some of your other softwares cannot do this. What I mean by most of your softwares cannot do this is because if you use things like SolidWorks or even Inventor, it will not let you put the dimensions on isometrically as far as I know. But what I'm going to be using is going to be AutoCAD, so I'm going to actually create the drawing that is on my screen. Now, if you're curious about seeing me do this in 2D, I did that video, and you can follow the link up here at the top right, and you can go and take a look at that video. But in this one, we're going to be doing an isometric drawing and fully dimensioning it. All right. So remember that in order to do this, we actually have to have the 3D part, or we can do 2D isometric. But I'm going to create this drawing just the way you see it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some of our normal stuff that we usually do. Let's go ahead and turn our grid off. Let's go ahead and put the ortho on. And let's go ahead and take a look at what running O-snaps that I have turned on. All right. Let me go ahead and switch over to 3D AutoCAD just by selecting the little gear here. And then I'm going to select the 3D modeling. Now sometimes you can go ahead and knock out a lot of steps with some things by creating the polyline first, or you may create them with lines and then join them later. But that's going to be strictly up to you. Alright, so I'm going to go with the polyline option this way. So I'm just going to come up here to the ribbon. And then I'm going to select polyline, which is located here. Alright, so I'm going to start my line and go this direction, and I hope it doesn't run off the screen, but it might. So that distance has to be 100. Let's see if I can kind of zoom out and pan over. Yes, got just enough room. I'll go up a height of 50. I'll go this way, a distance of 20. Right? Now, I have to go down, and remember I have to leave that gap of 20, so that line is 50, so 50 minus our 20 should give me a distance of 30 coming down this direction. I'll go this direction, and once again, just doing the simple math, this is 100 is our first line, minus the 20 here. That should give me a distance of 80. And then I can see and close since I didn't have to break my line. Alright, so this is one continuous polyline. I'll go ahead and create the slots as well, just to kind of speed things up. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with a circle. I'll click here. It has a radius of 15. Then let's use the copy command, so I can easily use copy or type in CO. I got my base point, which is here. As long as I'm going a distance, I'm going to give it a distance of 60. Let's go ahead and draw our lines. And I'm just going to kind of speed through these by using the shortcuts for now on. I'm just going to hit L, enter for line. Just going to go ahead and click that quadrant to this quadrant. Escape, and then L, enter again. And go from that quadrant to this quadrant. Alright, let's go ahead and trim this all up. So just use the trim command. So I'm just using TR. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off these portions. I'm going to highlight all of this by using a blue window or a green one. And then I'm going to select J and hit enter. So that's just going to join that together. And then I'm going to go ahead and create the other slot that I have at the top. So I'm going to go back to circle, center radius, click here. Radius is going to be 6. I'll copy it. So I'll use the copy command, CO, enter. Select this circle, enter. Pick a base point here, go this direction. Give it a distance of 80. Escape out of this. Let's just draw a line now from this quadrant going to this one. And then likewise again, so back to the line command. And then draw it from going right across here, right? Trim. I'm going to trim off these extra portions. And then like I did with the other one, I'm just going to join this together. So highlight it all and go J enter. Alright, let's take a look at this in an isometric view. And then I'm going to switch this over the wireframe just so I can use my gizmo. So I'm going to come along here and select 2D wireframe. And then the drop down, I'm going to select the word wireframe. Alright, so remember that we're in an isometric view, so I'm going to start rotating this view here to get it correct. Let's go ahead and extrude this first. So I'm going to extrude. Go ahead and select that shape there. Now you can either go up or down. I'm going to leave that strictly up to you, but the overall distance of this should be 120. Alright, so now I'm going to rotate this around. So remember that when we're creating an isometric view, we have a left side, a front side, and a top side, right? And in this case, I think a true isometric is the front is going this direction, the right is going this direction, and the top. So I'm just going to rotate it around to my view cube where it sees that at. Then I'm going to start adjusting my shape to fit that. So I'm going to go to the rotate gizmo, go ahead and select my shape here, select the red axis, and the first thing I'm going to do is get it flat. So I have my ortho on, I'm going to come and left click here, and now I need to rotate it one more time. So I'm just going to select the blue axis and I'm going to have it rotate that way. Alright, so now we have our shape rotated in the right orientation. Let's go ahead and fillet these corners just so it'll make my slots easier to place. The way I'm going to do that is come to the solid tab and then I'm going to choose fillet edge. I'll go down to the word radius. My first radius is going to be 30. I'm going to select this vertical line here and then this one. Go ahead and hit enter twice. And then go back to fillet edge. Go ahead and select radius. And I'm going to make this one 20. And then I'm going to select that edge and then this edge. Right, so I'll hit enter twice. Alright, now I need to go ahead and place these where I need to. But before I do that, I need to stand this one up. So I'm just going to come back to the home tab. I'm going to select here. I'm going to select this red axis. And then I'm going to stand it up, right? And I'm just pointing my cursor going up and then doing a left click. Alright, let's go ahead and place these. So I'm just going to use the regular move command. So move, select the object that I want, hit enter. I'm going to go to this center and then I'm going to place it at that center. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other one. So I'm going to move, select my slot, enter, find the center, and then come down to this center. Let's go ahead and extrude. Select this slot again. Go ahead and hit enter. I want to send it this direction. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with my bottom one. So I'm going to extrude. I'm going to select this slot here and send it through to the bottom. Okay, let's escape out of that and use the subtract command. So I'm going to use subtract. I'll go ahead and select the object I want to keep. Go ahead and hit enter. And I'm going to select the two objects that I want to subtract from it. And go ahead and hit enter. Alright, so here's the 3D portion of that is done, right? If I take a look at this in shades of gray or something along that line, you're going to see that I do have that three-dimensional shape created. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and add some more stuff here to it. So let me go ahead and change this back to wireframe. And I'm going to add those extra lines here because I don't have those. So I'm just going to use the regular line command. I'm going to draw a line from that endpoint going this direction. Back to the line command, so just L enter. Do the same here. I'm going to work on this other side as well. Let's see, let's do the top one on this side. And then let's go ahead and trim these, right? So let's use the trim command. Go ahead and get rid of these extras. Then I'm going to copy these lines here. So I go to copy. Go from that endpoint to this endpoint. Go back to the copy command. And I'm going to go from this endpoint down to this endpoint. Let's go ahead and make a couple of vertical lines here. So just draw a line from that endpoint going up. A line from this endpoint going up to that endpoint, right? So now this is where you got to be careful and make sure that you do select the endpoint here. Let's do the exact same thing here, right? Now remember that when we create shapes and lines and things of that nature, we have to be on the XY plane. So looking at your UCS becomes super important. What I'm going to do is use a X flip. So I want to flip this thing by grabbing the X handle and flipping this. The X flip is located here. So I'm going to select this one. You're going to see my cursor will now move this around, just spinning on that X axis. So I want the Y to be pointing in the up direction. So once I get the Y pointing up, I'll do a left click, and now I can go ahead and create those lines on top. So let's go back to the line command. Go ahead and click on that endpoint going up. And I might have to kind of zoom in a little bit just to make sure I'm on that endpoint here, going that direction. Same on this side, so line command. Going across this way. And line command going. And I may have missed that. Let me just make sure from that endpoint going up. Let's go ahead and trim this off. So back to the trim command. And I'm just using TR for trim. Kind of saves you a lot of time there. Let's go ahead and select these two lines here, as well as these two on the other side. Copy them. And I'm going to go from this endpoint to that endpoint. All right, let's go ahead and finish this off with a line going right across. And do the same on the other side. Okay, now that I have all of my lines done, let's go ahead and create a layer for those lines, right? So let's go to Layer Properties. I'm waiting on the dialog box to appear. Let's go ahead and create a hidden layer. And then let's go ahead and create a center layer. And then one more, I'll just go ahead and create one for my dimensions. All right, let's go ahead and place these on the right line type. So in my center one, I'm going to select the word continuous, come down to load, go ahead and find the one that says center 2, go ahead and hit OK, then select center, hit OK. My dimension one, let's go ahead and leave that to be continuous. And then let's go to the hidden one, hit load. Just going to scroll down till I find the hidden, hit OK. Then I'll select it and hit OK. Let's go ahead and change the colors. Let's make the hidden layer red. The dimension one, let's go ahead and make it, let's see what color will show up. Let's make it magenta. And then finally the center one, let's go ahead and make that green. Alright, so now we have all of our layers. Go ahead and select it. So I'm just going to close that dialog box. I'm going to kind of put a window around almost all of this, and then I'll come back and throw a window right around here. So that'll select all of those lines that I just created. Here in the drop down, I'm just going to add them to the hidden layer. Alright, so now we have those done. Let's go ahead and start getting ready for the dimensioning and things of that nature that we need to set up. So I'm going to switch over to layout 1. I'm going to create a rectangle. Lower left corner will be at 0, 0. In the upper right, let's go ahead and make this an A size drawing. So let's make it 11, 8.5. Let's go ahead and offset this line to the inside. So I'll go to offset, put in a distance of 0.25, and offset it to the inside. Now I'm going to select my viewport here, and I'm going to place it at this endpoint here. And then I'll place the other one along this endpoint here. Alright, so I'm going to double click on the inside of my viewport. So once I double click, you can see that it gets bolded on the inside. and I get some information in my UCS here. Now I want to make sure I get this in the right location, so I'm going to select Zoom Extents first, and then I'm going to start working on which scale that is going to be. So I can play with each one of these different scales and see if that's the one I like. This is a 1 to 30. Let's take a look at 1 to 40. Sends me back a little bit further and see what 1 to 20 looks like. Okay, so now this kind of depends on how big you want your dimensions to be. 1 to 20 would work, but you're going to have to make sure you keep your dimensions small. And 1 to 30 will also work, right? And you can see this one, I have a lot more room around it. 1 to 25 would be ideal. And we can go ahead and make that one if you like. So we can go ahead and select this fly up here. Let's scroll all the way down to where we go to custom. Once this dialog box appears, what I usually like to do is select the one that I have. So 1 to 20. Then I'll go to add. I'll just type in 1:25. And then I'm just going to change these numbers. So 1 for my paper unit, 25 for my annotation. Go ahead and select OK. And you can see that now it's in the right position between the 20 and the 30. And hit OK. And now my viewport is still active. I'm just going to select my 1 to 25. All right, let's go ahead and lock this viewport. Now I'm going to still work on the inside of this viewport. So my viewport is still active, and you'll notice that because it's still bolded around here, right? All right, so now let's go start setting up and putting our dimensions and things of that nature on here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in center EXE, and then I'm going to set my extension to, let's make it 3 and see how that plays out for us. All right, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the center layer command, and then I'm going to set this value equal to sin. All right, so here we go. Once again, keep in mind which way your UCS is facing. Super important. So when I go to put my dimensions on this, and let's go ahead and select the annotate, and I'll start with the center marks, and I go to place it on here, it's going to place it in that vertical orientation. If I was to select it here, it's going to put them here. And let's keep working our way around. I'm going to select here, and we're going to put one here, right? And I know this green might be kind of hard to show up. Let's go ahead and escape out of here, and then put a center line between that one and that one. All right, so now we have all of our center marks on here. And if these are too long for you, you got kind of two choices here. And this is going to be strictly up to you. So if I delete these, and let's zoom in into here one more time, and I use a center mark, and I just use the smaller arcs, it's going to give you a much more manageable looking line here. But that's going to be strictly kind of your preference there. If you choose the smaller circle, you're going to get the smaller kind of center mark, I should say. And let me go ahead and place this center line back between these two objects. All right, so now we have this created the way we want it. Let's go ahead and delete some lines, as you know we kind of won't see them or won't need them. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that line there. And I'm going to delete that line there just to kind of clean this up a little bit more. All right, so now one of the other things I'm going to do is now I'm ready to start putting dimensions on it, right? We have our center marks on, we have our center lines on. I'm next going to go ahead and say, hey, make all of my dimensions, come to this layer. And now, this is where you got to be extremely important, and I'm going to go ahead and set up my dimension style here, and then we'll kind of play with this a little bit. Let's go ahead and select this drop down here. I'm going to double click on annotative just to let it know that I'm using the annotation scale. Let's go to modify. And I always start from right to left, so I'll start with my primary units first. I'm just going to go ahead and suppress the trailing zeros. I'm going to choose the Fit tab here. And then underneath my Fit tab, I see that I don't need anything to adjust. Next, I'm going to go to my Text tab. Let's go ahead and make the text height 0.125. And then I like to end with the symbols and arrows and just go ahead and tell it that I have none. Go ahead and hit OK, and now hit close. All right, so what I was meaning by that is that you can see the orientation of my X and Y. My dimensions will be placed on the X and Y. Let's see what will happen if I go ahead and put a dimension here, which needs to be flat. So I'm just going to use a linear dimension. And if I select this endpoint, and let's zoom into this endpoint here, you're going to see that it will create my dimension vertically. I need that dimension to be horizontal, so I'll have to rotate my UCS in order to get that one. But I'm going to work with the one in the back since that's the correct orientation. So let's go ahead and put those dimensions on. So I'm going to use a linear. I'm going to go from that endpoint to this endpoint. And you can see where it places my dimensions. So one of those other important things is that I have to also make sure that my X and Y is in line with where I want it to be. All right. So this is that other trickier part about it. The way we're going to do that, and let's go back to the solid tab here. I'm sorry, to the home tab, is I need to move this, right? So I have different ways of how I can move that. The easiest way that I found out is you can use a 3-point, or you can also use a plane. So we do have a plane option that if I select it here, we can select the view, the object, or a face. If we use the face one, that'll give me the quickest way of getting the UCS there. So if I choose face, and I want to highlight this face, and once I click on it, it's going to say, hey, that's what you want. And then hit enter, and it will accept it. And now you're going to see when I put the dimension on it, that it will be in line with where I need it to be. So from that endpoint, and we're going to that endpoint, is that now we do have that dimension where we need it, right? And I should have did that in the other way. Remember that in AutoCAD, it remembers the last place you put that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again, just to show you the difference. I'll go to linear. If I start with the inside one first and go with the outside one second, it will place that dimension on the outside. Now, the only thing I don't like about that is that it does mess up your continue option. So if I go to continue, it wants to continue to the outside here. So I'm going to select the word select. I'm going to select this inside dimension here. And then I'm going to place it on that endpoint. Let's go ahead and hit escape. All right, let's go ahead and add a few more dimensions on this. Let's go ahead and put our dimensions on the outside here. We have a radius dimension. We have it on this big arc here. Go ahead and place that dimension. I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard. And then I have a arc located here. All right. Next, let's go ahead and rotate to this top plane here is what we need to do. So let's go back to the home tab. Let's go back and choose face. I'm going to select this face. And you can see that it has my X and Y, and that's not what I want. I want it to actually be laying down. So I'm going to choose the X flip on this one. Still kind of going the wrong direction. I can go way, I can get away with this one, but you can see my Z direction is pointing down. I'm just going to click next, next. And that's kind of acceptable, but now I need to flip it amongst the Z axis. So I'm just going to hit enter here, and I need to just spin this thing right along the Z axis. So I'm just going to choose the Z flip just so I can get it going this direction. All right, so when I chose Z flip, I actually left clicked along this way once I had it in that orientation. Let's go ahead and place our dimensions here. So I'm going to go back to the annotation. I'm going to start with my linear dimension, and I should have enough room to place it in between here. So I'm going to go from that endpoint to this one. Choose the continue option here. Go ahead and hit escape. Let's do one big linear over the overall length here. And you can see I actually grabbed the wrong location on my other one there. Let's escape out of that and go back to linear. I got to make sure that I get both of those endpoints. There we go. Then let's go ahead and choose our radial dimensions. Oh, we have one more linear dimension. Let's see, we'll go from there to here. All right, now I can kind of get to my radial dimensions. And you can see this is kind of, easy. The hardest part is just making sure that you have your UCS located in the right place. All right, let me go ahead and place my dimension here as well. I have a radial dimension located somewhere here. Now this one, it might be a little jacked up, and if it is, that's okay. Go ahead and place the dimension, and then when you try to relocate it again by selecting that grip, it will spin around to the right orientation. All right, now I need to go ahead and put my dimensions along this side, right? So we're going to go back to the Home tab. I'm going to choose the View, and you can see it's giving me the right orientation. I'll select there, and that looks to be somewhat right to me. Let me go ahead and change that. Nope, nope. That's the one I want. So I'm going to accept that one. And now I can go ahead and place the dimensions here. So back to annotative. I like to place my linear dimensions first. So I'm going to go from this endpoint to that endpoint. Go ahead and place that dimension here. Let's go back to another linear. I'm just going to hit enter. Let's go from that endpoint to this one here we created. Let's go ahead and place some dimensions here. So we have a dimension. So I'm back to the enter button from that endpoint to that one. Go ahead and hit enter one more time. Let's place that from that endpoint to that one. Okay. All right. So at this point, I got everything done. I'm going to double click to the outside of my viewport, and then I'm going to zoom the extents. So one of the most important things you do see there is if you lock your viewport. Last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make this paper match. So I'm just going to do a right click on layout 1. I'll go to page setup manager. I'll go and hit modify. And this is kind of the normal stuff I usually do. So DWG to PDF. ANSI full bleed A size 11 by 8.5. Extents. Go ahead and center it. I'm going to use a 1:1. Go ahead and hit OK. And then close. All right, and that should be everything that I need to do. I have a couple of more dimensions on here. Let me double click on the inside of that. I have a few of these that have 2x on them, right? And that's like the last thing I can do. So I can select all of these. Let's go ahead and do a right click and go to properties. And once my dialog box opens up, I'll come down to where it says primary units, right? I get a prefix in front of it. Let's go ahead and type in 2x. Go ahead and put my caps lock on, space, and I do have to put the R when I'm dealing with radial dimensions for some strange reason, because it tends to like to erase that R. All right, so now you see those dimensions are on your drawing as well, right? Let's double click outside of our viewport, and then we can zoom the extents. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this, and I kind of taught you one little neat thing about whenever you create drawings. Oh, before I go, I know this view has this kind of wireframe look to it. Let me double click on the inside of this. I can change this to whatever I want to give it that appearance. So if you want this to kind of look like it's shades of gray, you can have that. Or you can have this set to sketchy, right? So this kind of makes it look like somebody kind of freehand sketched this. Let me double click on the outside. And I think I'm going to leave it there for the end of this video, right? So thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this. And remember that this is kind of one of the few programs where you will get the dimension and isometric, but you have to understand or realize or figure out how to control it, right? So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please go ahead and leave me a comment at the bottom if you enjoyed this, and please consider subscribing if you like this type of comment. So until the next video.